One of the most common questions I receive from women of all ages is, how do I find my soulmate? And that's a perfect question because everybody's trying to find their soulmate, right? There's not too many people that, um, especially women, that don't want to grow old alone. Men too, but we're talking about sexual sisters here. So I always tell them there's a difference. I always tell them there's a difference between soulmate and egomate. And a soulmate is somebody who has a soul to soul, a spirit to spirit connection, not just physical to physical, but it encompasses all three. And then when you have those three working together, which is friendship, which is love, which is caring about that person's soul, that person caring about your soul, caring about your likes, your dislikes. You might have a lot of things in common. You may not have a lot of things in common, but you love what's inside that person's brain, in their mind, in their soul, in their spirit, and you fall in love with that soul, with that spirit, and who that person is. And that's a gem. When you find that, you found your soulmate. The opposite is an egomate. And an egomate is somebody who you think in your head or in your brain is on your vision board that's like, okay, this person has to have the looks, has to have the money, has to have the car, has to have the job, has to have, arm candy, the height, whatever it is that is more materialistic. You might like them, you might have things in common, you may hike together and do sports together, and all these wonderful things you have in common. But do you really, 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 in that egomate, care and love their soul? Do they really care and love your soul, your spirit, the person that makes you who you are? And because looks fade, money can go. We get old. We might not be that tennis player anymore and that pickleball player anymore. You might not have those things in common anymore for the rest of your life. And there, when I talk about soulmates, sometimes I think and I see it a lot. This happens a lot. I don't know why, but I see it a lot. And I'm sure you have too. The marriage that may have ended or the relationship that may have ended after a long period of time, either you become a widower, or there's a divorce, or there's a separation. And what does that person go back to? Facebook, social media. Oh my gosh, they found their high school sweetheart, or they found somebody they were with in the past and they had history with. And then they were like, I really loved that person's soul and, how we connected. And then they go back to that person. You see that they wind up either getting married, they're back together after like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they're 70 years old, and they're walking hand in hand because they found their soulmate again. And they probably realized, wow, that whole marriage or that whole relationship that I was just in, that was egomate, not soulmate. So everyone's looking and searching for their soulmate. And you have to know the difference between soulmate and egomate. One way you can sabotage a soulmate, egomate, you can sabotage a relationship to a real true soulmate is having sex too soon, being infatuated too soon. You think you've fallen in love with the person inside, or you feel reciprocated that they've fallen in love with the person inside. So quickly you give up yourself physically, and then that attachment, you become one, and And that can kind of overshadow what you've been working on, soul to soul, spirit to spirit. Because the physical, you become one and you have all these other emotions that come into play. You want to find somebody who is willing to wait for you because they care for your soul, they care for your feelings, they care for your spirit, and they're not a player. They're if you fall, you fall. Sometimes you fall, and that's still your soulmate. But there are players out there. There are those who sabotage your own by saying, "Okay, I'm willing to give myself up," or they're willing to give themselves up, and you've sabotaged it. And then you're confused. You're confused. You don't even know. It was that person just want to have sex with me, and then you gave it all up because you thought that they were your soulmate. And so I highly discourage, women to give up their celibacy, for searching for that soulmate. So they're not confused in that area, because women are stimulated emotionally, men are stimulated physically. I'm teaching women to be stimulated physically in their relationships, but you can sabotage yourself, like I said, too early, and the emotions all are they come flooding down, and that person really was not the one for you, and you find out later on that they were just an egomate. I want to say one other thing. Is that in this day and age, there's some sort of wave of thinking that you have to try out the goods before you marry them or get engaged in them or have a long-term relationship. That you have to try out the goods to see what's going on down there, to see if they can have sex, to see what it's like, to see if you're compatible there. But like I said, the physical is the last of the three. It's spirit to spirit, soul to soul. And then I always say that physical can always be worked on, because you want to work on that from the time that you say, okay, I found my soulmate. You work on the physical from that day on. You work on it for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of your life. And then by the time you're old, you've become so one. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing, because you learn about each other's bodies as you change from decade to decade and year to year, because we all go from physical changes. And if that soulmate is willing to stay with you and be with you, and you found each other, those things don't matter. The physical will always blossom, always be blossoming. But the soul to soul, the spirit to spirit, has already been documented, has already been there, it already has become one. I touched on celibacy because I want to give the term and the definition of celibacy. Celibacy is when you refrain from having physical sexual activity for a certain amount of time. It doesn't matter what that time is. That time is for to center yourself. Because when you constantly find a person that you are becoming infatuated with, and you're giving yourself to them, you're becoming one with them, you can get confused. But not only that, you're giving your energy away each and every time. And you want to keep your energy because you need to center. You want to make sure that that person loves your soul enough to say, okay, I'm going to wait for you. And you're going to say that to that person, I'm really burning for you. I really want to be with you. But I love your soul enough that I'm going to wait for you also. And that's a good test to prove, to see if when you abstain, to see if that person really is your soulmate or is an egomate. So we all should have a vision. We should have a vision for who our soulmate is. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, you can have a vision for your egomate, and that vision is all the physical things, with the spiritual things also. But sometimes when we have that vision board, or we have that vision, we write those things down. Well, this is what we want. This is what I want in a mate. This is really what I'm looking for. And the spiritual part is there. The soul part is there. But the egomate is also the ego there. And you're looking for perfection. And you don't want to look for perfection, because there is no perfect person. There is no one who's perfect, who's going to meet up to every single one of your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on your list. And not just because there is not just no perfect person. There is no perfect person. And you want to find the perfect person who is perfect for you, because there's no perfect person. They're perfect for each other. On your list, and if you want to have a list, you want to write down the things that you want, of course. But you have to be reasonable. And you have to be yourself. And what I mean by that is you have to be yourself, and you have to come as yourself, because if you're coming to impress and you're pretending to be somebody else, then you always have to live up to that. And the same thing with the opposite. You'll know if that person's real, not real. Come as yourself. Come as you are. And then that relationship will be honest. It'll be honest, and then it'll be easier to find out if that person's your soulmate. Another thing I say is go somewhere where you normally would not go to find your soulmate. If you keep going to the same place, where all the ego-mates are, like whether that be the gym, the muscle people, and everything. If you keep going to the same places all the time, if that's your eye candy, that's what you're looking for, you might not find your soulmate there. Go to a range of places. So to go to places where you never would think of. Go to places with groups. Go on a vacation with your girlfriends. Go on an island on a boat where there's a lot of different kind of people that you have never gone to before. There's lots of places. Some people say go to the grocery store and you'll find that your soulmate in the aisle. You're picking the same thing. It could be anything. But just get out of your comfort zone and go somewhere where you've never gone. One of the things that I love to do is when I find a woman who wants to speak to me personally, we video chat, we talk, we meet one-on-one, whatever it may be, and I help them find their soulmate. And it's not just the practical things, the practical things that we've just talked about and more. There's so much more. But when we talk one-on-one, and I can help them personally find their soulmate, because we're all individuals and we all have different needs, and we all have different ways of looking at things. We all have different ways of outlooks and ways that we were brought up, things that we should look for, what we shouldn't look for, and those might not be right for them. And so I like to help them find the little pieces to the puzzle to put it all together. And so that's what I really love to do.